As I stepped into the courtroom, I didn't expect to hear my name. But then the judge asked, "Wait, is that Camille Reyes, the governor?" Hey there, and welcome to today's story. What's going on with you right now? Are you sitting back and relaxing? Or maybe you're on the go. Either way, get comfortable because today's story is one you won't want to miss. It's about a character who has to face the kind of challenge that can break anyone. But does it break them? Have you ever been in a situation where everything felt like it was falling apart? Or maybe you've watched someone else go through it. Well, stay tuned to see how they rise above it all. Before we jump in, I'd really love your help in reaching 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to me, and it's what keeps me motivated to keep sharing these stories with you. So hit that subscribe button, and let's get started. Thanks again for being here.
When I was just 19, I thought I had everything figured out. College was supposed to be my time to shine, to prove everyone wrong and carve out my place in the world. But what I didn't expect was that the world I had built for myself would come crashing down, not from some external force, but from the very people I thought would always have my back, my family. It all began one quiet afternoon. I was sitting in the kitchen, sketching in my notebook, as usual, when my mother, Eleanor, walked in. She had that look on her face, the one she always wore when she was about to say something that felt like a punch in the stomach. I had seen that look 1,000 times before, but that day it felt heavier. "You're wasting your time, Leela," she said softly, but the words hit like a slap. "You're just wasting your potential. I don't know why we even bother anymore." My name is Leela Grant, and at that moment, I could feel the weight of everything I had tried to be, everything I had worked for, crumbling before me. I hadn't realized it at the time, but that would be the moment my life changed forever. My sister, Savannah, had always been the golden child. She was the one who played by the rules, excelled at everything, and always had our father, Robert, wrapped around her finger. Growing up, I was the one who didn't fit in, the one who questioned everything, the one who wasn't good enough. I wasn't like her, and that, in my family's eyes, made me a disappointment. But what they didn't understand, what none of them ever bothered to see, was that I wasn't just some rebellious teenager. I wasn't just fighting for attention. I was fighting for my own identity, my own path. And the one person I thought would support me the most, my mother, was the one who turned her back on me. I never expected her words to echo like they did. A week later, everything escalated. It wasn't just words anymore, it was action. I came home to find the locks on the front door changed. No warning, no goodbye, just a note from my father, Robert Grant, that said simply, "If you're going to live like this, you're on your own." No explanation, no second chance, just an empty house and a heart full of confusion and betrayal. I tried to fight it, at first. I stood there on the front steps, my hand trembling as I held the note. It felt like my entire world had been ripped from me in an instant. It wasn't just a family rejecting me. It was everything I thought I knew about myself being shattered. But there was no turning back. And so, I left. Without saying goodbye, without a single word to my sister, Savannah, who had always been the perfect one in their eyes. Without trying to explain, because, honestly, I knew it wouldn't make a difference. They had already made up their minds about me. I wasn't their child anymore. I wasn't their daughter. I was nothing but a failure in their eyes, just like they always said I would be. For the first few nights, I slept in my car, parked by the side of the road, staring at the stars, unsure of what to do next. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even know where I was going. All I knew was that I needed to get away from the people who had only ever seen me as a disappointment. I needed to find a place where I could be me, free from the weight of their expectations. A week later, I found myself on a Greyhound bus, heading toward Denver. It wasn't much, but it was my escape. I had nothing but the clothes on my back and a sketchbook full of ideas I couldn't share with anyone anymore. All the dreams I had were now just scribbles in the margins of my notebook. But deep down, I knew that this was the only way I could find myself. I had to disappear to become someone else. In the days that followed, I changed. I cut my hair short, dyed it dark, and started using a different name, Alex Carter. It wasn't that I was ashamed of who I was, but I knew that if I was going to make it, I couldn't let anyone find me. I had to start fresh, with no ties to the past. No one could know I was Lila Grant. No one could know the daughter of Robert and Eleanor Grant. I wasn't going to be their shadow anymore. It was a slow, painful process. There were days when the loneliness felt unbearable, when the memories of my family would hit me like a tidal wave. But I kept going, kept pushing forward. I couldn't afford to look back. Every day was about survival. Eventually, I found a small job at a diner in Denver, working mornings and nights to pay for the cheapest apartment I could find. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I started painting again in the evenings, not for anyone, not for praise, just for myself. Every brushstroke, every piece of art I created was a small act of rebellion against the family who thought I was nothing. Every painting was a step closer to reclaiming my life. But I didn't realize at the time that this new life, this escape, would come with a price.
Living in Denver wasn't easy, but it was mine. Each day was a new challenge, waking up in a cramped, rented room, staring at the peeling wallpaper that I once swore would be the last thing to go, but never did. The walls felt like they were always closing in, just like my thoughts. But every step I took, every day I managed to survive, was a step further away from the person I used to be. I became Alex Carter in every way that mattered. The old Leela was buried beneath layers of paint, fake names, and the mundane struggles of a life I had no choice but to live. Every time I felt like I might fall back into the trap of the old me, I would remind myself I couldn't afford to go back. There was no room for mistakes. There was no room for weakness. So I kept pushing, and the world kept moving around me. I worked shifts at the diner, flipping pancakes and cleaning tables, listening to customers chat about their days as I stood silently behind the counter. Most of the time, I tuned them out, my mind far away from the greasy diner and its chipped tiles. I lost myself in the rhythm of daily life, the sizzle of bacon, the clink of mugs, and the hum of tired conversations. It wasn't glamorous, but it was safe. It gave me time to think, time to plan, and time to escape. But as much as I had cut myself off from the past, I knew it wasn't truly gone. The ghosts of my old life would always be there, lurking in the back of my mind. The hurtful words my mother had said, the disappointment in my father's eyes, my sister's cold silence. The memories had taken root in me like a virus, and no matter how hard I tried to suppress them, they kept creeping in. One afternoon, as I was getting ready to clock out from my shift at the diner, my phone buzzed. I didn't expect much. It was the same old text messages from random people I had met along the way. But when I saw the name, my heart skipped a beat. It was from Samantha Drake. Samantha was someone I hadn't thought about in years, someone I barely remembered. But when I saw her name, I felt a chill run through me. She had been a part of my past, someone who once believed in me when the rest of the world didn't. But after everything had fallen apart, we had lost touch. That text made me wonder if I had been wrong to cut everyone out of my life. Maybe it was time to face the ghosts of my past. Maybe it was time to reconnect. The message was short. I know what happened, Alex. You don't have to hide anymore. There's something I need to talk to you about. Can we meet? I sat there for a moment, staring at the screen, unsure of what to do. On the one hand, I wanted to ignore it, to keep my new life free of any reminders of who I used to be. But on the other hand, there was something in Samantha's words, something that felt like a thread I needed to pull to unravel the past and see what was left. After a moment of hesitation, I typed back, "When?" The response was quick. "Tomorrow, same spot, 2 p.m. The next day, I found myself sitting in a small coffee shop just off East Colfax Avenue, waiting for Samantha. I had been to that coffee shop before, back when I was still Leela, still holding on to the hope that things might change.
It was a place that had been part of my old life, but now it felt like a different world, a place that was no longer mine. I hadn't realized how much I had missed the familiarity of the people here, the warmth of the cafe's fluorescent lights, and the hum of life that surrounded me. But I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't Leela anymore. The door opened, and I looked up. Samantha stepped inside, and for the first time in years, I saw a piece of the past staring me in the face. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, and her face was more tired, more worn than the confident woman I had known. But those same eyes, those eyes that had always been so sure, were still there. She spotted me right away, and despite the years that had passed, I felt a rush of emotion I wasn't prepared for. I stood up, unsure of what to say. "Alex," she said softly, a hint of warmth in her voice, "I didn't know if you'd come." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "It's been a long time, Sam." She smiled faintly, but there was a sadness in her expression. "I've been keeping an eye on you, you know. I didn't know what happened after everything went down with your family, but I know you've been through hell." "I had to," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I had no choice but to leave. She sat down across from me, taking a deep breath. "I know you've been hiding, Alex, but it's time to stop running." I didn't answer. I didn't know what she was talking about, but I could feel the weight of her words pressing on me, like the weight of everything I had tried to bury was now coming to the surface. "What are you trying to say, Sam?" I asked quietly. Her eyes softened, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the old Samantha, the one who had been my ally, my friend. "I've been following your progress. You've become someone powerful, Alex. You've changed, and I think it's time to come back, to face them, to face your family." My heart skipped a beat. I didn't want to hear this. I didn't want to go back to them. But there was something in her words, something that told me this wasn't just about facing my family. It was about something more. "I don't know if I can go back, Sam," I whispered, my voice breaking. "After everything they did to me, I'm not sure I can ever go back." She placed her hand gently on mine, her voice firm but kind. "You don't have to go back to them for them, Alex. You need to go back for you, to show them who you've become, to show them that you didn't need their approval to make it." I stared at her, the weight of her words settling into me like a burden I wasn't ready to carry. But deep down, I knew she was right. I couldn't keep running forever. It was time to confront the past, no matter how painful it would be. "I'm not sure I'm ready," I said softly. "You'll never be ready," Samantha replied. "But sometimes you just have to jump." The day after my meeting with Samantha, the weight of her words followed me like a shadow. I couldn't stop thinking about them. You need to face them. It's time to show them who you've become. But the fear, it wasn't just about confronting my family. It wasn't even about walking into the world that I had once known, but about walking back into a life that had tried to break me. There was a part of me that wanted to remain invisible, hidden behind the life I had built on my own terms. It had been so long since I had felt like I mattered to anyone, and the idea of throwing myself back into the lion's den to face the people who had discarded me like I was nothing felt like a betrayal of everything I had fought for. I sat in my small apartment in Denver, staring at the wall that had once seemed so full of potential. I had been running for so long, avoiding the ghosts of my past, the judgment, the expectations. And now I was being asked to stand tall, to face the people who had thrown me away like I was a mistake. I wasn't sure I could do it. But as I sat there, the same ache I had carried for so long, the one that whispered that I needed to prove myself, started to grow louder. It wasn't enough anymore to simply survive. I had spent years becoming someone I could be proud of, and now I had to prove to everyone, and to myself, that I was more than the girl they had abandoned. It was around midnight when I found myself packing my things. No more hesitating. I couldn't live in fear of what might happen if I returned. I had to go back, if only to reclaim the person I had become. I closed my suitcase and looked in the mirror. The reflection staring back at me was someone different, someone stronger. I can do this, I told myself. I have to. The drive back to San Antonio felt like the longest I'd ever taken. I barely slept, but somehow the miles seemed to pass quicker as I drew closer to the city that had once been home, a home I no longer recognized. The streets I had known so well now seemed foreign to me, like a dream fading with each mile. When I finally reached the old house, the sight of it hit me like a wall. It looked the same beige bricks, the same overgrown hedges. Everything was familiar, but nothing felt like it belonged to me anymore. I was no longer the girl who had once played in the backyard, running through sprinklers and laughing with her sister. I was someone new, someone who had learned how to survive on her own. I stood in front of the house for a few moments, just breathing. My heart raced as the old memories flooded back, and for a brief second, I almost turned away. But then I reminded myself, this wasn't just about walking through that door. This was about facing it. This was about proving to myself that I wasn't that scared girl anymore. I rang the doorbell. When the door opened, my breath got in my throat. There, standing in front of me, was my mother, Eleanor. She looked so much older than I remembered. The years had worn her down. She had always been the rock of the family, the one who kept everything together. But now she looked fragile, her eyes wide and filled with shock. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could feel the weight of the years between us, the silence that had stretched for so long. She looked at me, and for a second, I wondered if she even recognized the person standing in front of her. "Leela?" Her voice cracked, and she took a step back, almost as if she expected me to vanish. I shook my head. "It's Alex, Mom." Her face faltered as the words settled in. "Alex?" she whispered, as if trying to process it. She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering on the woman I had become. "I can't believe it's you. I thought you were gone forever." "I was," I replied quietly. "You made sure of that." There was a long pause. I could see the guilt flash in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a defensive, almost cold expression. "We didn't know what to do with you, Leela. You were always so different, so much of a disappointment. I couldn't watch you destroy everything we worked for. You made it impossible for us to help you." I clenched my jaw, forcing the anger back down. I had to stay calm. I had to stay focused. "You didn't try to help me, Mom. You just abandoned me when things got tough. You never saw who I really was. You never cared." Her eyes welled with tears, but she didn't speak. The guilt was written all over her face. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. It was then that I heard a familiar voice, my sister's, Savannah. She stepped into the hallway, her arms crossed, a cold look on her face. There was no warmth, no recognition of the sister she had once been close to. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sharp. "You've got some nerve showing up after all this time." I turned to face her, my heart pounding in my chest. "I came here to see you, to see all of you, to finally make you see that I'm not that girl you used to know. I'm someone different. I'm someone better." Savannah scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Better? You left, Alex. You turned your back on us. And now you think you can just waltz back in here and act like everything's fine? You're not better. You're just a failure who ran away when things got hard." Her words cut deep, but I didn't let it show. I didn't run away, Savannah. I left because I had to. I left because you, all of you, made me feel like I didn't belong. I didn't want to be your disappointment anymore. Savannah looked at me for a long moment, her expression softening, but just for a second. Then it hardened again, like she was preparing for a battle. "Well, you're back now, and nothing's changed. You'll always be the screw-up in Dad's eyes. You'll always be the one who didn't live up to expectations. So what's your plan, Alex? Are you going to try and fix everything now?" I stood there, silent for a moment, letting her words sink in. She wasn't wrong. I wasn't here to fix anything. I wasn't here to get their approval. I was here to prove to myself that I didn't need them anymore. "I don't need your approval, Savannah," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not here to fix anything. I'm here to show you that I've become someone you can't ignore. And if you can't see that, then that's your problem, not mine." With that, I turned and walked out the door. The night I walked out of that house, I didn't look back. I had no intention of giving them the satisfaction of seeing me falter. The walk to my car felt like it lasted forever. Every step seemed to echo in my mind, but I kept walking forward, refusing to let them drag me back into that world of judgment and rejection. I drove through the streets of San Antonio, the familiar skyline in the distance reminding me of all the years I had spent here, of the life I had tried so hard to escape. I could feel the weight of my decision pressing on me, but at the same time, there was something liberating about it. I was free. Free from the people who had tried to define me, free from the chains that had bound me for so long. But the further I drove, the more I realized that freedom didn't come without a price. The world outside the car felt unfamiliar, and my own thoughts were louder than ever. I could feel the anger bubbling up again, the anger at my family, at my past, at the people who had told me I wasn't enough. But I didn't let it take over. I had learned that anger could be a powerful motivator, but it could also destroy you if you let it. So I kept my focus on the road ahead, on the future I was building. The drive took me to a small, run-down diner on the edge of town. I had come here before when I needed to clear my mind, when the weight of the world felt too much to bear. The neon lights flickered as I pulled into the parking lot, and I could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning as I stepped inside. It was empty, save for the old waitress who knew my face, but not my name. She didn't ask questions. She just served me coffee and left me to my thoughts. I sat at the counter, staring into the steaming mug in front of me, lost in the sound of the quiet diner. It was in places like this that I could hear my own thoughts the clearest. I thought about what I had left behind, about the family I had grown up with, and about the person I had become. I had spent so much of my life running, trying to escape the past, but now I wasn't sure I knew what I was running toward. That's when the door opened. It was Samantha. She looked different from when I last saw her, more worn down, like she had been carrying a heavy burden. But there was something familiar about the way she walked in, the way she moved, as though she belonged here, as though she had a purpose. She spotted me almost immediately, and I could see the hesitation in her step before she made her way over to the counter. "You've been busy," she said, sitting down beside me. Her voice was soft, but there was an edge to it, a weight that matched the tiredness in her eyes. I took a slow sip of my coffee before responding. "Yeah, I've been busy." She studied me for a moment, like she was trying to find something in my expression, something that made sense. "You don't have to do this alone, you know," she said quietly. I looked at her, my brow furrowing. "What are you talking about?" Samantha sighed, her hands wrapped around the mug in front of her. "I know what you're doing, Alex. I know you think that cutting everyone off is the way to fix things, but it's not. You can't just keep running from your family forever. There's only so much that one person can carry before they break." I could feel my heart beating a little faster. "I don't need them, Sam," I said, my voice a little sharper than I intended. "They've never been there for me. And now they want to act like they care? Like they can just walk back into my life after all these years?" Samantha didn't back down. She looked me square in the eyes. "I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not even saying they deserve a second chance. But you do. You deserve to have peace with this. You deserve to make things right, even if it means confronting the past. Not for them, Alex. For you." Her words hummed on in the air, heavy and true. I wanted to argue with her, to tell her she didn't understand.
But the truth was, she did. She knew me better than anyone else, better than I knew myself sometimes. She knew that deep down, the anger I carried wasn't just about what they did to me. It was about what I had done to myself. The walls I had built around my heart, the walls I thought would keep me safe. But now, they felt more like a prison than a refuge. "I don't know how to fix it," I whispered, more to myself than to her. Samantha's eyes softened, and she reached across the counter, her hand resting gently on mine. "You don't have to fix anything, Alex. You just have to start. That's all. You don't have to have all the answers right now. But if you keep running, you'll never find them." For the first time in a long while, I felt something inside me stir, something I hadn't felt since I left San Antonio. It wasn't hope exactly. It was something closer to acceptance. Maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't have to face my family all at once. Maybe it wasn't about forgiveness or even reconciliation. Maybe it was about finding a way to live with the past without letting it define me. "I'm not sure I'm ready," I said quietly, the vulnerability in my voice surprising even me. Samantha smiled faintly. "You don't have to be, but you will be, when you're ready." I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe I could take the next step, even if it was just a small one. The road ahead was uncertain, and I didn't have all the answers. But as I sat there in that small diner, surrounded by the smell of coffee and the quiet hum of the world moving around me, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't running anymore. The morning sun was still low in the sky when I arrived back in San Antonio. It wasn't the same city I had left behind, or maybe it was me who had changed. The streets felt quieter, and the air seemed heavier than I remembered. The weight of what I was about to do pressed down on my chest, suffocating me with its intensity. Every step felt like I was walking towards something that could either set me free or break me into pieces. But no matter how many times I tried to turn around, my feet kept moving forward. I had come back to face my family, to face the ghosts of my past. It wasn't because I was ready for forgiveness. It wasn't because I wanted closure. It was because, somewhere deep down, I knew I needed to stand tall. For myself, for the person I had become. I parked in front of the house, staring at the large, old structure that had once been my home. The house I had left in the middle of the night, the house that had been a prison, both physically and emotionally. The house that had once felt like the place I was supposed to grow, but instead it had been a place that suffocated me, that made me feel like I was never enough. The house seemed smaller now, more run down, as if time had taken its toll on more than just the building itself. The familiar smell of the old wood, the creaky front door, it all felt like a lifetime ago. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, my heart pounding in my chest. I was ready. I rang the doorbell, and when the door opened, I was greeted by the last person I expected to see first, my father, Robert Grant. He looked exactly the same, though his face seemed harder now, etched with years of regret and unspoken words. He paused when he saw me, his eyes flicking over me, as if trying to figure out what to say, what to feel. But there was no apology in his gaze, no remorse, only the quiet, simmering anger that I had learned to read over the years. "You're back," he said simply, his voice flat. I didn't know what I had expected, but it wasn't this. A part of me had hoped that maybe he would have softened over the years, that time would have changed him, made him realize that his anger, his disappointment, had been misplaced. But standing in front of him now, I saw that nothing had changed. He was still the man who had thrown me out like I was nothing. "I'm not here for you, Dad," I said quietly, but firmly. His eyes narrowed, a flash of recognition, or maybe suspicion flickering across his face. He stepped aside to let me in, his silence hanging between us like an invisible lull. The air inside the house was thick, stagnant, with years of unspoken tension. I followed him into the living room, where Eleanor, my mother, was sitting on the couch. She didn't look up when I entered, didn't acknowledge me in any way. Her eyes were fixed on the television, and for a moment I wondered she even knew I was in the room. But then she spoke, her voice soft yet sharp. "You think you can just come back here after everything you've done?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. There was no anger, no venom in her tone, just a quiet sadness that broke my heart in ways I wasn't ready for. I didn't answer her right away. I stood there for a moment, just looking at her. I had always expected this moment to be filled with fireworks, anger, accusations, shouting matches. But now, all I felt was exhaustion. Exhaustion from the years of running, exhaustion from pretending that everything was okay when it never had been. "I'm not here to fix things," I said finally, my voice steady. "I'm not here to make everything right. I'm here because I have to be. I have to do this for myself." Eleanor's eyes flicked up to meet mine, and for the first time, I saw something in her that I hadn't expected. Regret, guilt, maybe even a hint of fear. "You've always been so stubborn," she whispered. "But I don't think I ever really understood you. Not the way I should have." "Neither did I," I replied. "But I'm trying to now, trying to understand myself." There was silence between us for a long time, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that allowed for reflection, for acceptance, maybe even for healing. And then Savannah walked in. She looked exactly the same as when I had last seen her, poised, perfect, the golden child of the family. But there was something different about her now, something in her eyes that wasn't there before. She stopped when she saw me, her mouth opening slightly, as if she were about to say something, but then she closed it again, her gaze shifting to her parents. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice cold but tinged with uncertainty. I could feel the tension rising again, but this time it wasn't just my family's expectations weighing down on me. It was the weight of years of resentment and anger, all wrapped up in a neat, silent package, and I was the only one who had the power to undo it. "I'm not here to apologize for who I've become, Savannah," I said, my voice more forceful this time. "I'm here because I've learned that I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need anyone's approval. I've built my life, my identity on my own terms. And it's not perfect, but it's mine." Her eyes softened, just a fraction. "You don't have to prove anything to us, Leela." The word slipped out, unbidden. She hadn't called me Leela in years. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I said. "But you do need to hear me when I say that I've stopped running. This isn't about fixing things, it's about moving on." For the first time, the air in the room seemed to change. The tension broke, and what was left was raw and real. The silence wasn't a barrier anymore. It was the space where we could finally be honest with each other. I stood up, ready to leave. There was nothing more for me to say, and I didn't need their forgiveness. I had forgiven myself long before this moment. "Goodbye," I said, my voice steady. "I'm done with the past. It's time to move on." As I walked out the door, the weight of my family's rejection still hung in the air, but it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't leaving to escape. I was leaving to live.
So, what do you think of the story? Do you see parts of yourself in the journey of Alex? Maybe the struggles, the lessons, the moments of growth? Or perhaps you've faced a moment when you had to walk away from everything you thought you knew, only to rebuild something even better in the process. Whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear them. Drop your comments, reflections, or even your own experiences below. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to join me for the next chapter of this journey. Thank you so much for sticking with me through the twists and turns of this tale. I'm grateful for your time, and I can't wait to share more with you in the future. Stay tuned.